Good afternoon, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the Western Marble Arch Synagogue here in central London. My name is Rabbi Daniel Epstein, and I'll be conducting today Kabbalat Shabbat and talking you through the last few minutes before a very special Shabbat indeed. As some of you may know, this Shabbat is deemed Mental Health Awareness Shabbat. It was an initiative that we started, myself and Laurie Rackind in our community, who is the CEO of Jami, the Jewish charity for mental health. And we started it in 2017 as a means of using a particular item, an idea, to try and help people to come to terms or grapple with or even acknowledge that there are challenges to our mental health. Some of them are fleeting, some of them can be much more deeply rooted, but in general, we know that 1 in 4 people will experience some form of mental health challenge during the course of their lives, and that means that all of us will feel affected at some point or another, but in general, people are affected more than others. So what we try to do is pick a particular topic that would help us to focus on this idea. And usually it is the plague of darkness. Now, the plague of darkness we'll be reading about next week, Parashat Bo, so don't get too confused. This week is Parashat Vaera, and we moved it this year, because next week will be Holocaust Memorial Day, and we didn't want to intrude on those ideas, which are also important, even though they have elements, obviously, of mental health attached to them, as well as much broader issues. So what is it about this week's particular parasha that would have something to say to us? And there is an extraordinary verse in this week's parasha when Moses tells the people that God has told him that he will take them out of Egypt. He has heard their cries, he has heard their challenges and their tribulations, and he remembers his promise that he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to redeem the people, to bring them to their land. And what he says is that Moses needs to tell the people that this is what he's going to do. And Moses goes along to the people who are in slavery and tells them exactly what God has told him, that don't worry, I will redeem you, I will take you out of the land of Egypt, I'll bring you to a land of your own, a land flowing with milk and honey. And the people just are not in a position to hear it. They are so overwhelmed by their situation. It says, "V'lo shamu et Moshe," and they couldn't listen to Moses, "Mekotzer ruach," from a shortness of spirit, that's the best way to put it, u'me'avodah kasha, and from extraordinarily hard work. And what happened was, as we find many times in our lives, that we get into a situation where we cannot hear that people are trying to help us, even if they have our best intentions at heart. We're too deeply inwoven in our own lives. We're too difficult, finding life too difficult, and we're struggling to try and understand or hear what people are saying to us. They're telling us, don't worry, things will get better. Or if we're dealing with much more challenging issues, such as addiction, or such as a tremendous loss, or tremendous senses of acute mental stress, then we can't hear sometimes even the people who are trying to talk to us. So this Shabbat is about taking the time and taking a moment to visit these particular topics, to think about our own lives. And Kabbalat Shabbat, the idea of bringing in Shabbat and putting away the week that has come before us, and to set ourselves up for the next 25 hours of time just to reflect, to be with ourselves, be with family, hopefully, and be with friends. And if neither of those and we're on our own, just a time to maybe read, time to go for a walk, time to enjoy the outdoors just for a moment. And that gives us time to reflect. What's really amazing is that having time to not do anything at all and just rest is when we get most creative. It's sometimes when we get most pushed to think of new ideas. But for some people who are really struggling, at time on their own, it can actually be quite frightening. So our prayers for today, we're going to sing some songs to bring in Shabbat, but the real prayers are for those who need some time just to be able to set their lives forward a little bit further, that they're in a good frame of mind, but just feeling overwhelmed by the week. Let Shabbat take that for you and give you that opportunity. And for those people who really are feeling incredibly overwhelmed by everything around them, there is one thing to say: you are never, ever, ever alone. That is why we're here inside this beautiful shul. I'm going to show you around just for a moment, this extraordinary synagogue here in Marble Arch. As we look at the stained glass windows behind us, the beautiful ark, and the incredible architecture behind us as well. As we look at all these things, we walk into this building, and it gives a lot of people a tremendous amount of I would say, inspiration to feel that they have the chance to be able to address their challenges. And for those who are finding things very, very difficult, as I said, you're never really alone. Here in this building, in a shul, we sense that God is always with us. The Ner Tamid up there in front of the ark is always on. And that idea of an everlasting light tells us that no matter how difficult things can be, there are people, there is someone around who wants to help us to move forward. So that is the idea of Shul, that is the idea of our faith, and that is the idea, in fact, of Shabbat. It's a day of rest. Even God himself, who'd worked so hard to create the world and to create all of the opportunities that we have to allow us to fulfill our own potential, even God, in a sense, needs a certain element of rest, a chance to move away from the creative elements and have a chance to appreciate what we have already achieved. And even when we look hard, even when we sense that we haven't really achieved very much this particular week, it doesn't take long to think there are certain small things that we've done, not to underestimate them, not to undervalue them, and to know that we are moving forward well. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of everyone here in our community as well, who will be here later tonight and tomorrow morning, we're also very excited to be able to address these particular issues and these ideas, and that we shouldn't ever feel that we have kotzer ruach, that we have a shortness of spirit, or avodah kasha, or that work is so hard that we can't think for a moment what we could do if we wanted to make ourselves feel a little better. It doesn't take much, but sometimes it's a tremendous effort. So for all of those people who need effort, hopefully these tefillot and these prayers will be special. In addition, in our community, we have a number of ex-IDF veterans with us who have been with us for the last week. They've been working on a project called Peace of Mind with the Mitiv organization that helps them through what is sometimes a decade and a half of post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, having gone through a very difficult service and needing more than a decade to try and reconcile some of those experiences, and even sometimes with a distance of over 10 years is what it takes to be able to say, that's what happened to me then, I need to process it and move it forward. So all of these things are here, and we're looking forward to spending time with them over Shabbat and helping them to have a wonderful and uplifting Shabbat, and hopefully that will help them on their journey as they go back to either their lives on their own, their lives with their friends, lives with families and children now, many of them. And so that will help them to be better parents, better partners, better individuals, and also better in and amongst themselves as they try to move forward. And as we know, in many times in life, taking forward difficult memories is not easy, but knowing that you're doing it with people who want to support you is a tremendous sense of uplift. So with that, without further ado, we're going to move into our Kabbalat Shabbat. So if you have the Sax Singers Prayer Book, which is here, then please do join us on page 256. I want to be able to hear you singing all the way here in Marble Arch in Marylebone. Yedit nefesh hav hadrachaman meshor chavdecha el retzonecha yarutz avdecha kmo hayam yishtachave el mul hadarecha yerab lo ידידותיך מנופי צוף וכל נתם הדור נאה עזיב העולם נמשיך עולת אהבתך אנא אמנה רפנה לה בהרות לה נועם עזיבך אז תתחזק ותתרפא והייתה לה שמחת עולם ותהיה אמונה רחמך וחוסנה על בן אהובך, כי זה כמה נחשפתי, לראות בתפארת עוזך, אלך חמדה ליבי, וחוסנה, ואל תתעלם, יגאלנה, aufros חביבי עלי את סוכת שלומך תאיר ארץ מכבודך נגילה ונשמחה בך מהר רחוב כי במועד וחוננו כי מעולם. Ti-dan-da-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai, ti-da-dai-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai, ti-da-dai-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai, ti-dan-da-dai-dai-dai. Hey, nine, 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 99. A wonderful 16th century poem that ushers in, as it were, the idea that Shabbat is coming. We move on to 6 Psalms, one after the other, 95 through 99, and then Psalm 29, in fact. And each of the Psalms, 6 of them, are not coincidental, I think, each one, as it were, representing one day of the week. And as we go through each Psalm, we can think back to that particular day of the week and move it forward. I know it's been an interesting week for me. I had a 5 days worth of COVID. So the week sort of morphed one day into the other. And I had time to think, in a sense, and time to be really grateful for the week that we've had and the support of family and friends and the ability to get through an illness and, thank God, come out the other side. So real gratitude this Shabbat. Page 258. לכון רבנה לתונה, נריע לצום ישנו, נקמה בפניו בתודה, בזמירות נריע לו, כי אין גדול עליהם ולא ימחלו הכלולים, אשר בידו מחקר את תועפות הרים לו, אשר לא הים הוא עשהו ובשלב יצרו, בואי נשתחווה ונכרע, נברכה לפני אדוני עושינו כי הוא עלינו ואנחנו עמולתו, וצאן בידו, הימים בקולו תשמעו, אם תקשו לבבכם כמריבה, וכיום עשה במדבר, אשר ניסוני אבותיכם, וחנוני גם רעוף העולי. 40 שנה כותבתו, ויאמר אמתו אל לבבהם, והם לא ידעו דרכי, אשר משפטי ויפי, אם יבון אל מנוחתי. And if you don't have a singer's prayer book, we're in Psalm 96. So anywhere you can find your Google, you can go across to the book of Psalms, Psalm 96, read it along in English. We'll sing it in Hebrew, and a chance to say, sing God a new song, Shir Hashem, Shir Chadash, and talk about the wonders that God bestows on his world, and again, an appreciation of the week that we've had. Shiru l'Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו לגויים כבודו בכל עמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מהיות, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים איי, כי כל אלוהי עמים אלילים, ואדוני שמיים עשה, עוד מהדר לפניו, עוז ותפארת במקדשו, הבו לאדוני משפחות עמים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, צום מנחה ובאו לחצרותיו, ישתחוו לאדוני ביד קודש, חילו מפניו כל הארץ, אמרו בגויים אדוני מלך, אף תקרון תבל בלטימות, יד דינמיים במישרים, יסמכו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלוכו, יעלו שדי, וכל אשר בו איי, אז ירננו כל הצייר, לפני אדוני כי יבא לשפוט הארץ, לשפוט תבל בצדק, בימים באמונתו, ינאי נאי נאי ינאי נאי נאי, תינאי נאי נאי נאי, תינאי נאי נאי נאי, תינאי נאי 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 נאי, תינאי נאי 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 נאי. Psalm 97. And I think this one part of this psalm in English is amazing. Fire goes ahead of him as God, as it were, sends his his abilities to command strength before him, consuming his enemies on every side. And this idea of having a fire in front of you, something that is also both can be destructive, but also can be enlightening. So maybe the fires that God is sending in front of him are a form of enlightenment. And the ideas of the enemies on each side aren't military enemies. They're the challenges we have in day-to-day life. And I think that if we read these Psalms always, not just looking for the specifics maybe of King David writing them in terms of his military experience, but also writing them in terms of his metaphorical ideas. What does it mean to have enemies on each side? I'm sure we all have them in every sense. They aren't people. They are the challenges we have, whether it's challenges with addiction, challenges with self-worth and self-evaluation. And these abilities, these things are enemies. They haunt us. And the best way to do is to be able to push them aside and say that God will ultimately look after us. We should rejoice in Hashem. Simchut tzadikim ba'Hashem, those people who are tzadikim, who are honest and righteous and doing the right thing, should be happy in God's name. V'hodul zecher kadsho, and they can praise His holy name. Psalm 97. Adonai malach tegel haaretz yismuchu im rabim anav v'rafel svivav tzedek mishpat mechol kiso esh lefarnav telech uta'et saviv tzarav heru barakav tevel uratav v'tachel haaretz hayim k'donag namasim mifnei Adon kol haaretz higidu hashamayim tzidko rou kamel kol ha'amim kvodo יבושו כל עובדי פצל המטילים בלילים, ישתחוו לו כל אלוהים שמע, ותשמח ציון, ותגרנה בנות יהודה, למען משפטך אדוני. 1 second. כי אתה אדוני עליון על כל הארץ, מאוד נלית על כל אלוהים, אוהבי אדוני סנורה, שומר נפשות חסידיו, מיד רשעים יצילם, אור זרוע על הצדיק, ולישרי לב שמחה, שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו. Psalm 98. מזמור שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, כי נפלאות עשה, הושיע לו ימינו, ובוזרו הקודשו, איי הודיע אדוני ישועתו, לעיני הגויים גילה צדקתו, אוי זכר חסדו ואמונתו, לבית ישראל ראו כל אפסי הארץ, את ישועת אלוהינו, הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, פיצחו ורננו וזמרו, זמרו לאדוני בכינו, בכינו וכל זמרה, בחצות צרון וכל שופר, הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויוש והיבה, נערות ימחאו כף, יחד הרים ירננו, לפני אדוני כי ייבא, לשפוט הארץ, וישפוט את תבל בצדק, וימים במישרים, ינאי דנאי 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 ינאי דנאי 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 תינאי דנאי 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 ay 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 nay 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 tina nay 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 tina nay 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 tina nay 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 nay. And Psalm 99. So this again has these motifs of ideas of God talking to us from different places. There's a beautiful idea towards the end. He spoke to them in a pillar of cloud, and they observed his testimonies as the statutes he gave them. Lord our God, you answered them. You were them for a forgiving God, though you punished their misdeeds. Exalt the Lord our God and bow at his holy mountain, for the Lord our God is holy. So this idea of being punished for our misdeeds, I think, is just as important as being rewarded for the things we do well. I think it's those boundaries that help us to know what's correct and what isn't correct. So punishment sometimes comes internally. In other words, we realize if we do something that's not good for us, we're the ones who are going to suffer the challenges of that. So sometimes we don't need even external challenges outside of us to give us cause to worry. We can generate it all internally, and that itself is also a tremendous challenge for people. So for all of the things that we do to ourselves, which we shouldn't, we should also be more forgiving of ourselves. And that's one of the other ideas we should be focusing on this Shabbat. Being forgiving of yourself, realizing that if God is in a position to forgive, then we sometimes are the ones who are, as I've been told, somebody related this extraordinary idea to me, that if we're being too hard on ourselves, then maybe we're being harsher than God himself. He's willing to forgive. He's willing to move past certain things and help us to move forward. And sometimes the only person who stands in our way, in fact, most of the times, the only person standing in our way is us. That is the Jewish approach to self-improvement. Let's have that ability. Let's move forward and let's use the notion of God and someone who wants the best for us to help us to do good things as we move forward. So Psalm 99. Adonai malach yugezu amim yoshev korim tanut haaretz. Adonai b'tzion gadol v'ram hu hakol amim. Yodu shimcha gadol v'nora kadosh hu. Oz melech mishpat ahev ata konanta mesharim. Mishpat utzedaka b'Yakov ata asita romu Adonai nu v'shtach v'ladom ragav kadosh hu. Moshe v'Aharon b'chohanav. Ushmuel b'korei shemo. Korim el Adonai. V'hu yahanem. V'amud anan yidaber aleihem. Shamru eidotav. V'chok natan lamo. Adonai Eloheinu. Ata nitam. El nose hayita lahem. ונוקם על עליlotam רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. And Psalm 29, a psalm which we sing, we put the Torah away on a Shabbat morning. It has most wonderful ideas, again, about looking at God's holiness, beauty, what he's done for the world, all the extraordinary ideas. Vayishaber Adonai et arzeh halevanon. And God, as it were, his voice, the voice of God, can even break the cedars of Lebanon. This idea also, again, metaphorically speaking, cedars of Lebanon were considered the strongest form of natural growth. Beyond stone, you have these strong cedars. They grow tall, they grow strong, they're hewn into beams that, in fact, were created to use to build the temples. In fact, the Mishkan and subsequently the temples brought down from Lebanon with a fantastic team, 40,000 men who would bring them forward to be able to build the temple. But the ability to break the cedars of Lebanon also is the things that seem completely impervious in our lives, the things we can't see how we're going to get past them. But using a Kodesh Baruch Hu, using God to help us, as it were, to draw that strength and faith to break through even things as strong as the cedars of Lebanon, enables us to realize that even things that we think are immutable can, if they need to, be moved in order to help us move forward. Some things need to stay where they are, but we know very well, just by asking ourselves the questions, which things don't. And please God, we have the strength to get through those as well. Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai b'nei Yelim, v'havu l'Adonai, kavod v'ozayai, havu l'Adonai, kavod shemo yishtachavu l'Adonai, b'yad kodesh kol Adonai, al hamayim el hakavod yirim, v'yadonai, al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai, hayai b'koach hayai, kol Adonai, behadav, kol Adonai, shover arazim, vayishaber Adonai et arzei halevanon, vayakidem kemo egel, halevanon, v'siryon, kemo, hayai v'drei mimayai, kol Adonai, חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יחיל מדבר, יחיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני חולל איילות, ויחשוף יערות ובהיכלו, כולו מרכבות איי, אדוני למבול ישב, ישב אדוני מלך לעולם, Adonai Osli Amo Yitein Adonai Yivarech Et Amo Vashalom Tirai Nai 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 Yanai Nai 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 Tiranai Nai 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 Yanai Nai 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 Hayai Nai 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 Yana Nai 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 Yana Nai 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 we're going to conclude with this beautiful prayer. L'chadodi likrat kala, panei Shabbat nakabla. The idea that l'chadodi, come my bride, come my beauty, my beloved, to greet the bride being Shabbat itself, panei Shabbat nakabla. Let us welcome her, the face of Shabbat. And this idea of greeting Shabbat as a bride is this idea that it's a very special moment when we go to any wedding and when we feel that moment where we're all asked to stand as the bride comes in, and having the fortune of being able to conduct many weddings and in fact speak to the bride and the groom beforehand. For many months we discuss and we talk about what this day will mean, that it's just one day at the beginning of please God, a very long life together. But this idea of when we have this excitement of knowing what is going to be for this couple, please God, that they should be blessed and they should be well, and also all the challenges they're going to face that they faced individually, but now they'll face together. They should have the strength to help each other to move forward. And that is the idea of Shabbat. Shabbat is that strength on the other side that helps us to move forward. God always there in front of us to help us to move forward. And the idea is always that wherever we feel we have challenge in our lives, to draw the strength from knowing that faith gives us a tremendous capacity to move forward with things, even if we cannot imagine how we're going to do it yet. Focus on it and dream, as it were, of what's possible. And please God, even the smallest things, which are the most difficult sometimes, should make a change. The best way to do that is really to find something particularly small and focus on that. The best way to make changes is not to make huge resolutions on the 31st of December or the day before Rosh Hashanah even, but to make small commitments that you can take on each day. 5 minutes of reading. If it's a challenge with food, one less a chocolate bar. That's one that's in my heart all the time, and I will get there one day. And ideas again, and if it's time for ourselves, then one more comment or one more particular line in a journal to say that I have been of worth and of value to somebody today. That's a huge statement to make, so let's make it. Last 3 minutes. Let's enjoy L'chadodi and sing it together. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. Shamo v'zachor v'diburech adishmiyanu. Ela meyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad Shem ultiferet v'litila. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. Likrat Shabbat lecho v'nelcha ki hi mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh v'machshava tchila. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. Mikdash melech ir meluch hakum mitzai mitoch hafecha harav lach shevet v'yemek kabacha v'hu yachmol alai chemla. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. Hitnari me'afar mi livshi bigdei tifartecha mi al yad ben yishai beit alachmi korva el nafshi ge'ala. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. Hitorli ki varech kom yuri 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 shir daberi kvod Adonai alayich nigla. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. Lo tevoshi v'lo tikarmi ma tishtochachi u'mate mibach yechasu ani yami v'nibneta ir al tila. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. V'hayu limshisa shohosayich v'rachaku kol mevalayich yasis alayich Elohayich kimsos chatan al kala. L'chadodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabla. Yamin u'smol tifrotzi mi'et Adonai talitzi al yanish bein parti v'nismecha ונגילה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה. The last verse we will hum, because there's an idea that if we sing it and we sing it in its entirety, maybe we have actually officially summoned in Shabbat, which means we're in real trouble. I can't turn off my computer. We can't leave properly. You can't go into Shabbat. You can't light your candles. So let's just hum this last one, and then we will close off. So we're going to turn and face the back of the synagogue, the back of the synagogue. So I'm going to be here. We face the doors at the back of the synagogue. And in that way, we welcome in the Shabbat in a literal sense. We open the doors hoping to see the Shabbat come through. And that concludes our Kabbalat Shabbat this week. So to summarize, what we've spoken about is the ability to use Shabbat as a day of rest, a day of recharging, a day of restarting, a chance to make sure that we can appreciate the week that we've had, the challenges that we faced, and the things that we have succeeded in doing, whether it's managed to go shopping, whether we've managed to help our kids with their homework, whether we've managed to get up and get some physio done that helped us feel a little more strong, or whether we've had a chance to speak to somebody and work through a difficult challenge, and whether we are in the middle of those as well and we haven't resolved them. This Shabbat should give us the rest and the chance to recharge to do that again. So from all of us here at the Shul, also on behalf of Jami and behalf of all of those who are making an effort for Mental Health Shabbat, to Laurie Rackheim, to Laura Bahar, who's worked so hard with her team to make sure that so many communities around the country are looking after themselves and doing something for Mental Health Awareness Shabbat. Wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Keep well, look after yourselves, and just remember that every move that you move forward is a movement towards a better person and away from the challenges you've been facing. And those steps can be taken every day at any moment. And if you didn't succeed today and you don't even succeed tomorrow, Sunday is just another day to have a go. Wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom. All the best.